Hey everyone, today I'm going to cover coating your screen in emulsion with a scoop coater, as well as actually exposing the screen. So if you don't have a screen or an exposure unit created, I made another video that covers that. And once you have that made, come back and join me for part 2. I used the first screen I made in part 1 of the series to test exposure times. Because I didn't plan on having a screen this size, I had to improvise a scoop coater. I found a plastic gutter piece at the hardware store and used painter's tape to seal the edges. It worked surprisingly well, and I would recommend a gutter for a cheap DIY scoop coater. It's good to know that any scoop coater you'll buy or make needs to be 3/4 inch smaller than the inside part of the screen. Once I had the scoop coater figured out, I needed to test my exposure times. So I used a stencil with 5 image repeats to test exposing the screen between 10 to 15 minute intervals. I covered each image repeat at 1 minute intervals within the 10 to 15 minute test period. My first video in the series covers making the screen and exposure unit if you're interested in learning more about that. Since I'm going to be printing on fabric for the final print, I tested my screen on both knit and muslin fabrics. They both turned out really well, and I didn't see a difference in the exposure times, so I decided 10 minutes was enough exposure. Once all my testing was done, I was ready to create my moon phase drawing for printing on my skirt fabric. I'm not accustomed to drawing on the computer, so I drew the moons using a compass, pencil, and paper. I then scanned the image and traced the layers in Photoshop. At this point, I needed to decide how large the print area would be. Since my fabric was 63 inches selvage to selvage, I made the design 31 inches tall to give myself some wiggle room when printing. This meant I would do 2 repeats across the selvages and as many as needed lengthwise to have enough printed fabric for the skirt pattern. The design needs to be printed on special transparency paper. To print, make sure the rough side of the paper is facing up and you're using the highest DPI or quality of your printer. I'm using ProChem's TX Discharge for the emulsion because I'm using water-based inks. I'm demonstrating the motion needed to apply the emulsion because it's light sensitive and the lights need to be off when I'm actually applying it. This is what the final setup looked like before I actually exposed the screen. I had read that a piece of glass should sandwich the stencil and screen together with the foam we previously made underneath. However, my piece of glass wasn't large enough to cover the entire design, creating problems in the end. I would omit the glass if you don't have a piece large enough. You can see the line where the emulsion didn't set around the edge of the glass. I also end up using 2 passes of emulsion, which created a thick layer that didn't set in the 10-minute exposure time. You can see the difference in the color of the set emulsion on the test screen and my second screen. I ended up cutting it out and starting over with much better results. I hope you found this video helpful on your screen printing adventures. If you did, Please stay tuned for part 3, where I'm actually going to be printing this pattern onto some fabric. And also, if you could subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when my next video is released, I would much appreciate it. Thank you.